Welcome to the Building Spirit-Filled Homes podcast by Red Mountain Community Church. This podcast exists to help us engage with a variety of topics through a biblical lens. It is our prayer that we'll take all that we learn from these conversations and apply them to our lives so that we can make a kingdom impact on those around us, starting in our home. Thanks for joining us for our conversation today. All right, welcome to another Building Spirit-Filled Homes podcast. Today we have the Cookmans with us. I'm really excited about our conversation, and I know it'll be a blessing to your home. So thank you for joining us. Tobin and Jennifer, thank you for coming to the couches just to have a conversation. I know you've had some changes in your life recently, and I know, Jennifer, your mom came to live with you guys, and just the reality of dealing with our parents as they get older. And it's not something a lot of us think about, but it's a reality. And I just have felt blessed to listen to how you guys have just navigated the challenges of, like, how do we care for our parents as they get older, and how does that affect our home, and how does that affect our relationship, and where are we seeing God in that as our parents get older. And so I would just love to have a conversation, have you guys share a little bit about what you learned kind of from this journey, kind of the ups and downs, and just where you saw God in it would be just a tremendous blessing. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
So what do you think was probably maybe one of the biggest challenges, adjustments for you guys, as the reality of mom's going to come live with us now? How did that affect your guys' home, and what were the challenges in that, maybe that were expected or unexpected?
Well, I think there were a lot of unexpected challenges. We were kind of just, when something like this comes up, you don't always have time to think way ahead of how this situation is going to unfold. And with my mom, her health, she was living close by in a rental, and her health declined, and it had been declining for about 6 months before that, and she had some emergency room visits, and we watched her. In her particular case, she was getting thinner and thinner and thinner. In her particular case, she had a persisting cough that wasn't really totally figured out. And so anyway, and it just became obvious that she was not doing well anymore in her own space. And I talked to two of my siblings, because I have 4 siblings, and one across the country, 2, 1 in Arizona and 2 in California. So we were the only one living next to her when all of this was going on. And so when I talked to 2 of my siblings, who are the medical people in the family, about what was going on, and we moved her to her house, and then she immediately had another emergency room stay. And I think everybody could see from how it was going that this was what was going on, and she needed extra help. But even that was a lot for siblings who aren't there day to day, because they can't be. It was a lot for them to take in. And there were all then the different opinions of siblings were starting to come to the surface more, and the questioning, and the, what's going on, what's really going on. And my mom happened to be the kind of the hub of the sibling. And instead of siblings doing a lot of communicating, they would communicate with my mom,
and she would kind of filter out.
So so that was a process to work on with the siblings that was definitely kind of unexpected, but we were just taking it as it was happening. And she needed care just right away.
So it just speaks to the complexity, right? This is something that you start noticing, but even that's a journey. Right. And then you've got the complexity of people living all over the country, and some of them have information, some of them have partial information. So that's important to know, that, like, this rarely is like a smooth thing.
Yes.
It's just messy, it's complex, it's full of lots of things to process, and it's just the reality of like, man, my mom's getting older and like
Right.
and she's dwindling.
Right.
And so you're processing all of that. So amidst kind of the journey of processing all of that, where were some moments maybe where you and Tobin saw glimpses of God and his provision? Like, I think that's helpful because I think sometimes we can focus on the chaos of like, how do we do this? And the reality is like, well, none of us really know, right? There isn't a book that says, hey, when my mom or dad get to this age, you do this, then you do that, right? It's just kind of, we're figuring this out. So how did that affect kind of your guys' home? And then like, where did you see the Lord maybe provide for you guys as individuals and a couple along that journey? Would be great. I'd love to hear more about that.
Do you want to comment?
Yeah, maybe I'll talk about how it affected our home. And Jennifer, we've talked so many times about how the Lord had to see us through and sort of showed up right when we were there. So Jennifer talked about the complexity. It was pretty complex because when her mom, Pat, had to move out, it was like Jenna had been taking care of her, if we went back before her passing, about 18 months. And in total, she took care of her about 18 months, but she was only in her home for 13.
Okay.
When Jen started taking care of her and helping her get to the doctors and things, she was still working.
Wow.
She had a job outside the house. She was still providing an income for herself. She had a lot of money. She was still driving everywhere. And then within just a few months, she was in our home. And so all of a sudden, a woman who had been extremely independent for decades was now dependent upon Jennifer and I for just about everything. And to watch her process her loss of independence in our home put a huge challenge in our home because she's questioning everything. She's been taking care of everything. And now she has to say, Jennifer, I want to go to the store. Jennifer, I need to go to the doctor. Jennifer, I would like this type of product, whatever it was, all the way from Kleenexes to lotions to everything. And now everything was falling on Jennifer. And so all of a sudden, Jen and I are used to doing things together. And that just sort of ceased and got less and less and less as our mom progressed. So our home was so dramatically impacted. To have a vision of that when it started, we had no idea that our home was going to be so impacted by her mom moving in. And so I'll lead to, as we talk about, one of the first areas that I saw the Lord step in was even as Jennifer talked about, as siblings were trying to figure out the health of their mom, the Lord kept stepping in and intervening as they would come visit. They would report back, yeah, mom's really serious. Yes, Tobin and Jennifer are providing good care. Yes, they really do need to do it this way. It was like the Lord was speaking on behalf and defending us in situations that we needed to see and experience him. Because when you get to the very end, and I'll say, where did I really see it? Even to the moment of her passing, his hand was right there. Even the moment in the evening that she died. Wow. It was like he ministered to us and the Spirit was right there in the room as she took her last breaths. We were right there. But even the timing of that was perfect. And her siblings would have said that because the next day we had a whole house full of all the siblings and her grandchildren.
Wow.
And for them not to have seen their grandma and their mom in that case was his provision, because 2 weeks earlier we had all been together and she had been able to share the last times of pictures and laugh together, and all of the siblings were around their mom 2 weeks before her passing. Wow. So 2 weeks before, they got this special moment that there was this healing time among siblings. Then 2 weeks later, before they were to come back, she had passed 1 day earlier, and nobody had to see those last hard moments of life. We did. Sure. But it was like the Lord gave us the strength to see it. So I could see those windows. Jennifer had many, many more moments where she saw the Lord step in, because there's the caregiver right there. She had months and months and months of taking care of her mom.
Isn't that amazing how, just listening to you, Jennifer, explain just all that was going on, it just feels overwhelming. And then now looking back, for Tobin to share just a piece of, man, God showed up along the way. So it's just this beautiful reminder that even in the midst of these new seasons of life, the Lord shows up in such unexpected and glorious ways and provides exactly what we need, even to the point of like having those moments with the family, like right before, and it just working is a miracle in and of itself. So what were some of the things that maybe you noticed, or things that you want to share?
I think seeing God show up, I think looking back, during we could see it, but looking back, there were certain things that became more obvious because the day-to-day was hard.
Sure.
It was hard. And my mom and I, we had, going into this, we weren't real close. We had lived close, but certain things in adulthood, we had gone different directions. And so all of a sudden we're under the same roof, and we've got different
and under your roof now, not her roof,
and
right?
she likes sweet pickles and I only like dill pickles, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's only one, and you have to have this way. You have to have these prunes fixed this way, and you have to have, you know. And so just figuring out, and like Tobin said, she was coming from an independent stage. So I don't even know. I haven't been there yet, so I don't know what it's like to lose that amount of independence.
Sure.
But when we're not really discussing that, but we're dealing with the ramifications of what that feels like, but she's new to this, I'm new to this, dealing with her with this, and so I don't know, there were a lot of times when I was just, my prayers were, help me Jesus, help me Jesus, help me Jesus, like repetitively. It was like I couldn't get out a big eloquent prayer, but I could pray like that, or I would be singing VBS songs from years ago when my kids rode VBS. It would have I'd be singing those kind of songs, because that would be just to not say things that I needed to not say, that I was thinking.
Yeah.
And so the relationship part of it could be very difficult at times with my mom, and she would have said the same thing about me. It was hard to get along with Jennifer, but we kept working through it, and it was, just the Holy Spirit just kind of giving that perspective of, this is hard for her, and this is not a good stage of life for her. It's hard, and she's having to process more than I can understand right now.
Sure.
And just, I mean, learning to show grace and thinking about it and then actually doing it. I think in that time, probably the less I said to her, the better.
I love just the vulnerability that you have, and just the honesty of just saying this was hard, right? I mean, no matter what kind of relationship, right, you have with your parents, like, this is a hard thing. And so in just speaking and honoring your mom so well, saying, hey, this is a woman who is independent. Like, she had her way. She lived, a good life. And what that must be like to shift your perspective to realize, wow, what is it like when I get older and these things start being stripped from me? And so it really kind of, in a way, prepares us for what's to come. But it's kind of like a trial by fire, because again, it's like, I don't, and I loved how you shared that, man, even as you served in VBS and brought your kids to VBS decades before, right? Like, those are the songs the Lord is giving you to bring peace and comfort, and even to hold our tongue, right? When we're feeling a little spicy, the Lord's like, hey, focus on me, and I'll give you the strength. Like, what a beautiful testimony of really being obedient to the Lord's voice in the midst of this difficult time. So I so appreciate you sharing just the truth of it, right? It's not like, hey, we're believers, everything's going to be fine. When my parents get old, we'll just usher them into the kingdom. It's like, no, there's certain pickles that they like.
Yeah.
and that is going to be something that you're like, why am I angry about pickles today? But it's like, I guess it just and I love how you just spoke of, it really just continues to remind us how important grace is for our loved ones and for ourselves. Like, just to be like, wow, this is hard, but thank you, Jesus. And I love the prayer. Like, you just crying out Jesus' name sometimes is like all we have, but it's enough. And it's the fact that we know where to go, right, to cast our burdens, because he's gentle and he's with us and he's compassionate. So thank you so much for sharing your heart in that. What is there any advice that you guys would give somebody that, like, or something like you wish you knew? Not that it's like, hey, there's this checkbook, if you do this, it'll go better, but were there things along the way that the Lord taught you where it was like, I kind of wish this would have been nice to have known ahead of time, or in that realm?
I think from what I wish I would have known, and I mentioned a little bit about the independence, Dave.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Even at the death of my family or my mom, I did not see, because my sister and dad took care of my mom before she died, how much the lack of independence, I should say, how hard that is. If I would have known that, maybe I would have showed more grace at first to Jen's mom. But to think about, you're working and then you're not. I'm living on my own. Now I live in my daughter's house. I can walk without an air machine, and now I can't. I'm walking on my own, and now I'm in a chair.
Yeah.
I'm not being pushed, and now I'm being pushed. I can fix my food, and now I can't. I can take myself to the bathroom, and now I can't. And I can feed myself, and now I can't. And I finally can breathe, and now I can't. That journey, I didn't have any concept of how hard that would be, as Jennifer has said. And our fleshly anger can get in the way when really the person is just saying, I just want to do something I did before.
Wow.
I wish I would have known that. There's probably, if I went to the nuggets of truth, a good friend said, I want 3 things for you. What an honor it is to walk with a family member as they pass out of this life. It is an honor, but it is a hard honor. It was really hard. And then the impact it will have on your family is unbelievable. It was unbelievable to see the restoration of Jennifer's siblings and their mom, and even the restoration of the relationship between her and her mom. Whereas right before her mom was there, when all of her siblings would say, she told them in front of all of them, Jennifer's been a saint through all this.
Wow.
But if you look back and ask Jennifer, she'd say, I don't know how saintly I am.
That shocked me when she said that.
It shocked her. And so that was the second, to watch family. And the third was, and this was a nugget of truth that somebody gave me and I would pass on to anybody. When the time comes and your mother-in-law dies, do not feel guilty for the relief you will feel.
Wow.
Because it is hard. And finally, we had relief. And you do feel guilty. Why do I feel so guilty? But it is hard. And the Lord took us on a hard journey. But at the end, she's okay. She's with the Lord.
Absolutely.
We're okay. We still have the Lord.
Yeah.
And it's okay because our life is slowly coming back to what it was before her mom moved in. But it's still part of that journey, that sanctification journey. So those would be what was hard and a few nuggets of truth. And I'll let Jennifer wrap up for us.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Tobin, to not feel guilty, right? Of the Lord taking that burden, because it is a burden that we're all going to go through. And so I think that's a good reminder that we shouldn't feel shame over that. That's the enemy speaking into us, that no, the Lord has just taken, that burden from us. And because we have been faithful and we have, been long suffering in the midst of it. So Jennifer, as we close, what are some final thoughts to end our time together?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I think, well, like Tobin said, we didn't know the timing of this. We kept hoping my mom would get well, that all these doctor procedures that she was having and medical and all of these things she was having done would extend her life, and she would bounce back, and she would gain weight, and she would get strong, and my siblings did from afar too. And so, but God's timing, even though it wasn't easy, I did see in a new way just his sovereignty, because his timing of how things went, his timing of when hospice would show up at our house before she had another dip or something, so that I could take what hospice told me and take what a nurse said about my mom and pass that along to my siblings. That was just, there was so much defense. I also was looking for scriptures, in the Psalms when it's talking about how the Lord's going to defend you. And I was praying for his defense, and he defended us with how the timing went, with how we would get medical input that we could then pass along to siblings and stuff. So it wasn't just our word. With my mom in this vulnerable state, we had other people,
interjecting and giving you what you needed,
professional opinions and stuff. So it was, and I felt very defended by that. And then I even felt really defended of his timing, because like I said, we had no idea what that timing would be, but he did. And he was just showing up in the timing all over the place. And I could see that looking back, even though it just, at the time, it seemed like, how long is, and what is this? And, but he had it all down, and I can see that now.
It's almost like a song of, reminds me of just like a psalm of lament. Like, it seems like the season of caring for your parents as they get older is just a song of lament. Like, you cry out to the Lord. It's how long, like, why is this not being fixed? But at the end, we realize, man, but you have to look back and realize, wow, he's been with us the whole time. He's provided in abundant ways. But it kind of seems like the encouragement in this story is just trust the Lord. It's going to be hard, but he's with you. And when the burden is finally lifted, you're going to look back and be like, wow, look at how he cared for us, and look at how he strengthened our home in the midst, and even our family, and restored relationships along this journey. And a big piece of that was because you laid it before him. You didn't try to do it on your own. You didn't, now at times maybe you tried to do certain things, right? You learn along the way. But I just think I'm so grateful to spend this time with you guys, just to hear about this journey, because I truly think it's going to be a blessing for others as they realize, oh, wow, these are the things that we're going to go through. And it's going to be hard, but there's going to be tremendous blessing along the way. And a lot of it we're not just going to realize until kind of the burden is lifted. And yet the burden's lifted, but it's lifted into glory. Because your mom is with Jesus right now, and you'll one day see her again, which is our hope and our comfort. And so thank you guys so much for sharing with us today. I just so appreciate the blessing of just getting to spend this time and hear about what the Lord does through life and through life circumstances. So thanks again. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks again for joining us on Red Mountain podcast of Building Spirit-Filled Homes. The blessing, continued blessing of this is Jennifer and Tobin are part of our family. And so maybe you're going through something like this. And if you want to reach out to them more on like a Sunday or when you see them around campus, I would encourage you to do so. We weren't meant to do this life alone, and so we do it together. And so that's one of the hearts behind these podcasts, is that we learn from each other and we're encouraged by what God is doing in our midst. Thanks for joining us.